Hey everyone, I'm Gloria S, Crump, the Queen of Real Estate with the Coastal Leaders Realty Group. Thank you for joining this week's Tea Crumpets, and today we have Tony Peery with Sweet Home Inspections. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I love the name. Oh,
thank you. Oh, I've done my crown.
It is quite all right. The crown's okay, so we're good to go. So tell me a little bit about, yourself and how you came up with the Sweet Home Inspections and just a little background about it.
So I've been an inspector in Florida for the last 5 years, and as you know, the market's been a little slow, and so I was like, the only way for me to make it in this business is I've got to start my own and see. And so I've always lived in Alabama, even when I've been inspecting in Florida, and so I couldn't believe when I looked up, Sweet Home Alabama. I was like, man, I'd like to call it Sweet Home Inspections, and I couldn't believe it wasn't taken.
I know, I love that name.
This is awesome. Yeah. So that's how the name came up.
Yeah, well, I think it's great. I mean, you can always use a little bit as your jingle. So, and so you said that you started the company about 5 years ago.
I've been in the business 5 years. Okay. Sweet Home Inspections has been in business for about 2 months.
2 months?
Yeah, it's new.
Wow,
it's
awesome.
New. Yes, ma'am.
But yeah, that's great. So obviously you inspect in Florida and Alabama, but is there certain areas, like in those states that you, let's say, do you do Mobile as well? Or?
So I will, you know, and I'm licensed inspect. I could inspect anywhere in Florida or anywhere in Alabama. But where I'm really trying to focus is just Baldwin County. I live in Baldwin County. I love Baldwin County. There's so much growth in Baldwin County between Fairhope and Daphne, Foley, Alberta.
Yeah.
Down on the beach is always busy.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's plenty to keep me busy in my own backyard. But if someone needed something in Mobile or somewhere relatively close, sure, maybe.
Because a lot of times we sell to people here that own, the next county over, or like over, and then as well as in Escambia County, Florida. So, and then so tell us about the types of inspections you offer. I mean, obviously you do condos and you do houses.
I do mostly, so it's mostly pre-residential pre-sale. That's what I like to do. And then, I know a lot of home inspectors do have a lot of ancillary services, and I provided those before with the last company I've worked for. But I typically, I like to be a great value for the dollar spent. And so I 100% believe in every single penny spent on a pre-purchase inspection. My pre-purchase inspections take like 4 hours. I look at everything in the house.
Yeah.
Now, you can do all this ancillary stuff, but in my opinion, your money, so like let's say I'll do sprinkler inspections, right? And I'm licensed to do sprinkler inspections. I'm trained to do that. But a sprinkler inspection, it still takes me about 45 minutes to an hour. And so it costs $150 for me to go in and inspect it. And what I do with one of those is I just look at the sprinklers, I test them, I turn them all on, and then I just tell you what isn't working, what is, what's happening.
Yeah.
But I can't fix it or do anything. I think your money's way better spent with a landscaper or someone who does sprinklers. They'll probably do the inspection for free, as long as you give them the business to fix all the things that are broken. So you can probably spend $150 with them and not only know what your problems are, but have them fixed.
Yeah.
So I like to leave the things in the hands of the people they belong.
Yeah.
So that's
and same thing kind of probably with the pool inspections too. So.
And the pool, I say, hey, go with a pool guy.
Yeah.
Even though if you want the pool inspection, you're like, look, I just want you to look at it. I can look at it, but again, it's a visual inspection. I'm just going to run the jets, turn on the lights, look at your electricity, make sure the things are grounded, but I can't fix anything that's broken. You got a broken strainer, you got a broken light. I just report it. Where if you hire a pool company, they'll tell you got a broken light and we'll fix it for an extra $100 or whatever it is.
So you just ended up saving the money. Well, I think that's really good, and because that just goes to show you that you're actually looking out for the client, not your pocketbook. Because so many inspectors would be like, yeah, I can tack this on, and I feel like your approach is like, yeah, I could definitely do it, but I can't fix it. Whereas you can probably spend that amount of money not only having it inspected, but possibly it could be what covers the cost of repairs.
Yes, ma'am. So it's better for the customer. And if it's better for the customer, then it's better for all of us. We all win.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's something too that, which hopefully we'll start getting into multiple offers again. But if, we have properties that have that type of contingency, if the buyer's saying, hey, I can spend this money fixing it, I'm not going to ask you to repair, the sprinkler system or repair the pool. then they just maybe put themselves in an advantage over another buyer that would want the seller to pay for that when you're sitting back going, no, actually I can save $300 by using those particular people who are definitely specializing. And then I think that's a really good option. So that's a good deal. So what is some of the most common findings you see during a home inspection? I mean, I always know if there's not a GFCI outlet out, I feel like the inspectors just did not do their job.
Yeah, there's always a GFCI out.
It always.
You know, so GFCI is ground fault current interrupters. So those should be.
Those are the things that you press when you put your hair dryer in and it won't work.
Exactly.
That's for the women watching.
Exactly. You know, and the thing that's awful too, in almost every home, they're sistered to each other. Mm-hmm. So it's cool when it's in the master, but I like when it's in each bathroom. But most homes that you inspect nowadays, or a lot of homes, all the bathrooms are going maybe to the master. So if your kids are in their bathroom with their hair dryer and they blow the fuse, they got to come into the master bathroom and press the button.
And that's what my house was. It was built in '83, and so my master bathroom controlled that bathroom across the way. So.
It's very common, and you're right. You see that all the time. You see cracks in concrete all the time. You see, caulking deteriorated around the windows all the time.
And that is something that people should do, and they should use the correct caulk for the outside.
Absolutely.
So anytime we have request sellers to caulk the exterior, always make sure they use the correct caulk, because sometimes, I mean, I've seen people use bathroom caulk, for the outside. I'm like, oh my God, that's wrong. So we make sure.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So other common things, so I would say for new construction, there's always cosmetic defects. There's always going to be cosmetic stuff going on in new construction. But two of the biggest things I've seen, at least for safety on new construction, and they can fix it easy, but it would be very unsafe to move in without getting an inspection. And two things. One, I've seen at least 5 times insulation, like the loose fill in the attic wasn't installed yet. No big deal necessarily, because it only takes a couple hours to do. But if hosing is in 2 or 3 days and they haven't done it, it's like, are you going to do it before they move in? And I've actually had a girlfriend of mine who, she had lived in her house for 1.5 years, and it was always hot, and her air conditioner was going out.
She did not have any insulation.
She didn't have any insulation in the top of her house.
Oh my goodness! And it was a new house.
And it was a new construction build. She lived in it for 1.5 years.
And her power bill was
so high. And I thought it was just her dirty HVAC filters. But when I went into the attic looking to see if one of the pipes was maybe disconnected, I was like, I'm like, there's no insulation up here. And it wasn't sprayed.
And it's not cheap either to have insulation.
Oh, is it not? I don't even know how much it is.
No, I mean, it can be very costly depending on how big the attic is in the house and such, and depending if you want the batting or the blown.
The loose fill, the blown.
So that is something interesting to know that you've seen that new.
So I've seen that a lot in new construction. The other thing that I see,
would have never thought that they would overlook that,
is the main ground isn't connected. So what that is, outside, almost everywhere in Alabama and in Florida, your service disconnects are outside the house. You go to the Midwest, a lot of times they're inside.
Because of the temperature.
Because of the weather, and it's just different building. They just build things differently.
Yeah.
But here, they're almost always outside. And so what happens, we've all seen like the little grounding rod, and they've got a little copper wire that goes down to this rod that's in the ground. You just see the end poking out. And I've seen this at least 30 new construction builds. They don't have that copper wire going from the service disconnect to the grounding rod, which means the house isn't grounded. And so if your house isn't grounded, it's a super easy fix. I mean, they can fix it in 5 minutes. Put a piece of copper, screw it into the panel, screw it and connect it to the rod, and it's done. But if they don't do that, and like I said, I've seen this a lot of times on new construction, then the biggest risk is, there's an electric shock risk, especially with metal house appliance, like a dryer or toaster oven. But the big thing is, we all have iPhones and iPads, computers, and as we plug those into a house that's not grounded, it's way more at risk for power surges and fluctuations that can hurt your electronics. Dude, depending on how many kids you have, I mean, that could cost you thousands of dollars the very first day you moved in if that grounding wire wasn't hooked up.
And you've seen that about 30 times.
At least 30 times on brand new.
That is,
just not.
And I'll be honest, I've never in all the 21 years I've been selling, I never even knew about this. So that's really interesting. So, I mean, I guess that's a good thing.
It's a good thing to find
but it's something that to know that is something that you might.
They can miss it.
They can
It can be missed, and it's easy to do.
Yeah.
And they'll do it. But who is really, really looking? And so that's why, it goes back to why to get your home inspected. Even for new construction, you never know what is there to be found. So
just the insulation in itself, I mean, that would definitely pay for this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or just for me, while I'm moving in, I don't have to be as hot as the attic in that house,
No, that's crazy that has happened. So speaking of crazy things, what are some of the craziest stories you have come across?
So I'll tell you, at least I'll start with a funny one, and then maybe we'll get to an expensive one. So the funniest, or at least funny, is to me was I've only seen one live dead animal under a house. And so the customers were actually there on the property. And I'm an ex-Marine. I like to think that I'm all manly and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not. So there's this possum under the crawl space. And I saw it. And I thought, it looked dead. It looked like I'd been hit by a car. It was like half
that's
skinned.
He was playing possum.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. So I'm just like, hey dude, leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. I just want to crawl by and look at something. It wasn't dead. It wasn't dead. No, oh, yes, ma'am. It's as soon as I got close to him, he's like, I'm like, I screamed like a 12-year-old girl, and I'm like, get him out of the house. The customers are like, oh my, what's going on? And I was just too panicked. I couldn't even speak. I'm just like backing up, hoping that possum didn't get me.
Buried person.
I know, but it was no problem, and the problem got taken care of, and I didn't get hurt.
That's good. No rabies.
Yeah, that was one of the scariest, or at least funny stories.
Yeah, especially when you thought it was all passed away, and it's like
it was still kicking.
Yeah. He was letting you know he was very much alive. So what's another story you got?
So what kind of story would we like of
crazy
things that I've seen?
Things.
Oh my goodness. I've seen some craziness. So we talked about before, this is crazy just because it's so unusual. So I got to inspect an old house, and not just a really, not like the 1940s or 50s. I inspect those a lot. I got to inspect like a 1700s house.
Oh wow.
And
where was it?
It was off, in Cantonment, off Old Novak Road, right?
Okay.
And it was gifted by the King of Spain to somebody way back when.
Wow.
And so, and it's been remodeled a bunch of times and stuff, but I went to the crawl space, like I know how all kinds of different crawl spaces are supposed to be built, and this one, it was basically just piles of rocks that the foundation was all sitting on. It was like hundreds of piles of rocks, but it had been there for like 300 years, so I'm like, they got something going with this rock thing, but all I could do was take pictures and just, this looks good to me. I don't know. I just wasn't even
Were there cracks inside, like the walls, like the foundation?
So the walls were, so it wasn't regular drywall. So
no,
you had the plaster.
It's plaster, yeah, it was plaster.
And the studding of the walls, a lot of the walls was original, it was totally different. It was totally different. Super cool. Though, I mean, knowing that house had to get backfitted for both electricity and plumbing.
Yes.
And it wasn't set up for that originally.
That would have been really neat to see. And that's why I saw Hamilton, and we were laughing about how some of the founding fathers' homes are still, standing. I'm thinking, wow, maybe like these builders and contractors are going to inspect those homes and say, how is this literally still standing after 3,250 years plus? And then, incorporate it back in there. But like you were mentioning, the wood they used back then was very old wood, which was stronger, and whereas now our wood frame is mass,
right? It's soft grown pine that's growing quick, and we're using it as fast as we can grow it, so it's much younger. It's just not as strong a material, and you can't find old wood. It just doesn't.
That's crazy. I think I showed a house. It was in Alberta, and its basements aren't very prevalent down here because the water table's too high. But I remember showing a house in Alberta, and I think it was built in it was early, maybe like 1900, 1909 or something of that nature. Well, I decided to go into the basement. Well, I saw something scurry across, and
man.
I don't know if it was a possum or not, but I was out of that basement within a split second. I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I think there was one other house in Lillian, and I was like, gosh, I don't know, basements down here are kind of scary if you do come across them. I'm like, is it like the Underground Railroad? I mean, it's just like tunnel. I'm like, So it's just very rare. But I think that's cool that you got to inspect 1700.
Yeah.
Especially if it was gifted by, King of Spain.
Yeah.
That's a very neat story. Yeah. So what are some maintenance tips for homeowners that could prolong the life of maybe your air conditioning or just easy things?
So here are some of the easy tips that everyone should know. And a lot of people are going to know this, but you'll be surprised how many people don't, right? So let's talk about HVAC system, right? It's one of the most expensive systems in your house. Now, an HVAC system is going to cost you between $10,000 and $15,000 for a regular split system, and they last about 15 years. But the way to make them last 15 years or longer is to keep the filters very clean, right? You don't want any dust in the system because dust is going to hurt it. So my recommendation,
it makes it work overtime.
Right, it's got to pull so much harder to get through the dog hair and the dust and the cats and all this stuff. So don't buy the expensive filters. Buy the cheapest filters that you can get and change them every month.
Make sure they're the right size.
They have to be the right size, and then just make sure that maybe you pay your rent on the 1st, or maybe on the 10th, or whatever it is. Every time, the day that maybe you pay your rent, that's how I do it. So the day I pay my mortgage, which for me is the 1st, I go through the house, I change out all the filters, and I just buy enough that they're always there, and I pay the mortgage, change the filters that day.
Yeah.
And by doing that, you'll make your air conditioner last a long time. You will stay nice and cool. You'll avoid more problems, and it's just
it helps with your power bill too.
Yes, absolutely. So definitely do that. The other thing with your HVAC is there's a little tube in there, right? That's a little shut-off. And down here, it will get clogged.
Yes.
It'll grow mold and mildew, little boogery-like stuff.
It'll just get gunked up.
Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Yeah,
and some people tell you pour bleach in there, but I've heard bleach is bad for the system. But
and
vinegar
is
great.
From the HVAC.
From the HVAC guys, they're like, the bleach will actually hurt the plenum, which is a part inside your air conditioner. But if you use vinegar, you're safe. So, and vinegar's cheap, it's less toxic. Just throw like a cup of vinegar down there pretty much every month, especially during the summer. So when you change out the
filter, just pour, so do those, whenever you pay your mortgage or your rent, just pour down.
Yes, ma'am.
Change the filter and do the cup.
And that will help tremendously. Now, other things that I strongly recommend people do that I see all the time is, one, check your window caulking. It's real easy to do.
Especially on stucco in East houses where the water can penetrate and cause extensive amount of damage. That's what happened to one of my friends. She did not do that, and she lived in the home for 6 years, and she didn't. She was single and didn't have a man to take care of all this stuff for her, but she didn't know. Well, she ended up, the stucco had to be replaced from midway from the house down, and it was about a $25,000 to $30,000 price tag of not continuing with the caulk to make sure that it.
And had she just caulked it,
it would have prevented
avoided that whole
because it was all water intrusion behind the stucco, so that's what happened.
Yeah. So
and she was under contract, and the inspector was able to see like the infrared, and that's how he was able to see that there was every window there was water damage. So that was about 8 years ago, I believe. So I always tell people now. Yeah. So she was like, I had no idea. And then that's when I tell people, it's like, you got to get the right caulk too. You can't just go grab something right off the shelf.
It has to be product specific.
It has to be for the exterior, yes.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll say as far as maintenance, so you've got your HVAC stuff, you've got the caulking on the windows and the doors outside.
And even around your tub sometimes. Because
yes.
Because it can go behind there depending on how your tub's set up.
Absolutely. So caulking is super important and super easy. So that's something I recommend you do. And the last thing is, like caulking, it's all those cracks in your driveway, right? And everyone's got, if you've got concrete driveways in the South, it's going to crack.
Yeah.
But here's what's going to happen. So you've got a little bitty crack in there. No big deal. if you fill it, and you can use any filler, you can use any of the products out there on the market, they all work. Some of them work differently, some of them look differently, so use your own personal preference, but they all work, and how they work is they fill that crack so no more water can get in that crack, because the water will erode it like the Grand Canyon, right? And sweep more of the debris out, more of the concrete. In the winter, it'll get in there and then freeze and expand. You just keep making that crack bigger and bigger. But if you just take and fill those concrete cracks with any of the products that are out there,
you'll prevent that.
Then the water doesn't get in there. You won't have any more cracking. And cracking's, besides being a little bit cosmetically not so pretty, if you let it crack for long enough, then you start to get displacement, where one part of the concrete will be higher than the other, and it'll be all lumpy, and then it's like a tripping hazard, or you stub your toe. We all wear flip-flops down here, and that can be extremely painful.
I had 20 pine trees at my house removed, and the root system had cracked the driveway, and then it was just a progressive, so it was.
Did you have to replace the whole thing?
No, I sold my house, so I didn't have to let buyers do it. Excuse me. But no, I let the buyers do it. I took that into account with their offer. I was like, okay, I understand it has to be done. So I was like, I think it's, and my air conditioning lasted for over 20 years because I changed the filters, and then and even when I would have something little happen, I would have the HVAC come out, and they were like, wow, your air conditioning is very well maintained. And I mean, it was 20 years old. They replaced it, but it probably lasted a little bit longer.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so as long as you just kind of, and I make sure the caulk and everything was done. So I guess being in real estate, seeing all these inspections has helped me be preventative with my home. Yeah, except when it came to the concrete. So.
Well, now we know.
Yeah, now I know. So, well, good deal. This has been very helpful, and I've actually learned some things, so that's good to know. So, and I hope y'all did too, and thank you for joining. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No.
We're going to have your contact information too at the end of the video. So
perfect.
Yeah, so good. Well, that way, and I think too, not just people who are buying homes. I've always suggested even people could just get home inspections done, even if they're not planning on sale. That way they know what's going on with their home.
Absolutely.
So
or if you are going to sell it, right? Yeah. Some people will do this too. And it's, if you're going to sell it, you could get an inspection done before you even list it.
For sure.
Just to see what is an inspector going to find, And then, if you have a big thing, and there can be big surprises in a house. Sometimes.
Well, you're not under contract and then it falls apart. That's what I did as well. I did a pre-home inspection on my home.
It's so smart to do.
Yeah,
and then okay, they're all a bunch of little things.
Yeah.
No big deal,
Exactly.
Or,
if there was something
if you have
major,
something.
red flag, I could go ahead and, which there wasn't, but if there was, I would have been able to tackle it at that point. So, but I do suggest people doing pre-home inspections just so that way they know what their home's condition is and there's no surprises, and it does help with with buyers, even if you want to share that inspection with them. So
another thing is, so if you're doing a pre-sale inspection, so it's not even on the market, right? And I'll come out and I'll give you a detailed inspection report, right? And plus I'll talk to you about it. Then if you said, this isn't that hard, right? I need to caulk the windows, I need to change my HVAC things, I need to fill the cracks in the concrete. If you just do those little things, right, then the next inspector who they hire will come and hopefully find a house that's almost flawless.
Exactly.
Or doesn't have any reportable deficiencies, which is going to help ease that whole selling process, because there's nothing unexpected. And then the little things you already even took care of, so there should be really no problem. So it depends how smooth sailing you have time to do and what you feel like doing, but it could really make it go a little smoother.
For sure, I definitely suggest that. Well, good deal. Well, I appreciate your time, and
thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching, and we hope you have a great week.